Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome back to Thompson to Clark, the second day of this new year. And Brad, I will say that the end of 2023 didn't go quite as well for the Giants as we wanted.
No.
But
No.
hopefully 2024 brings us a little bit more goodness as it comes to the free agency period. So what are we going to talk about today? Because people are going to be like, what's going on? Nothing's going on. Well, there's a little bit of stuff going on. We still haven't really had a chance to talk about the Yamamoto to the Dodgers deal. We haven't had a chance to talk about some of the other free agents that are still lurking. They're still out there. And I will have a question for you to end this show about 2024, which we will save for the end of this show.
Excellent.
But why don't we kick it off with the Yamamoto to the Dodgers deal? 12 years, $325 million. And we have when we talked about the Ohtani thing, we basically said, look, we're bitter, we're mad, we're frustrated, and here's why. And we put that clip out, and so many Dodger fans are mad at us for being mad that the Dodgers got Ohtani.
Should we be happy?
Exactly. Oh, all the excuses that I'm fighting. I'm in flame wars with people in our chat. It's actually not that bad.
No, it's fun. It's
a lot of Dodgers fans puffing out their chests, which they should absolutely do. But this next deal, the Yamamoto deal, is really interesting. And if you look at it from the perspective of what do teams generally do when it comes to these smaller pitchers who are maybe not, they don't have the resume that would suggest that they would get a lot of this money. And we talked about this when we were talking about the Giants possibly signing him. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of when the NBA in the early 90s, I'd say closer to the mid 90s, they did not have a cap on rookie deals. So in 1993, 94, Glenn Big Dog Robinson gets drafted with the number 1 pick by the Milwaukee Bucks, and he immediately becomes like the highest paid player in the NBA. And it's kind of like that in that Yamamoto, obviously, in Japan, was a stud. He fared well in the World Baseball Classic. And now the Dodgers are basically paying on potential versus on what he's actually done on the Major League Baseball field, which is a little bit different in how baseball teams put their teams together. So I wanted to ask you one specific question, and then we can just riff off of that, which is, now in hindsight that the Giants did not get Yamamoto, are you frustrated? Are you okay with it? Are you kind of like wait and see? Because I'm in the wait and see category. I'm like, man, they put their money where their mouth was, 12 for 325. The Giants didn't have to do that because he picked the Dodgers. And now there's no worry on the Giants end of like, what if this guy's not actually as good as advertised? Where do you sit with Yamamoto to the Dodgers?
It's funny. I mean, you might as well just put the title on this one, Bitter Giants Part 2. Because my view right away was, oh, okay, I see. He doesn't want to create his own legacy. He wants to ride the coattails. He wants to jump on the team that's already built for success, even though they haven't won a legit championship in like 35 years. But he, wanted to go, hey, Shohei's here. I know the presser. And he said, yeah, I probably would have come here anyways. Again, without Shohei, there's still a stacked team. So yeah, he wanted to go somewhere, I think, where he didn't have to create a legacy. And that's why I respect Judge a lot more, because Judge was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm just trying to get more money, but I want to continue to create my legacy in New York. I want to stay with the Yankees. I want to build off of that. Same with Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper goes to Philly. Philly hadn't won anything yet, but he wanted to start something. He wanted to kind of build something. He wanted to hopefully be the centerpiece. But a little tongue in cheek. But yeah, I think Yamamoto, he didn't want the fire, man. He didn't want to be one of the pillars to begin a quest for possibly multiple championships. So what do? You choose the Dodgers because you want to just go win. You want to win some championships, but you don't want to have that pressure on you to be that guy. So maybe he's not a pressure guy. He's going to pitch every 6th day, maybe.
Yeah.
6th or 7th day, because again, small guy, and 100 and what's his max innings in Japan? It was like 150. I think something
Yeah,
around.
I don't know, because that's just normal for Japan, right? They have six
exactly.
man rotations, or they don't pitch as often as they do in the US. So no, so it's a great observation. Here's another observation which is interesting to me, because we don't follow Japanese baseball all that closely, but I've been listening to a podcast that I think I mentioned here before. Tim Kawakami and Dylan Hernandez do a podcast called North and South. And basically it's about the Bay Area and about SoCal and all the teams. And Dylan Hernandez, the thing about Dylan Hernandez is he actually speaks Japanese. Like, I don't know his background. I am looking forward to hearing more about his background as they get, do more shows. But he's able to speak Japanese. And when Ohtani came to the Angels, like, he was kind of the guy because he spoke Japanese. He understood the culture a little bit better. Tim himself is also Japanese. And so I've learned so much about Ohtani. I've learned so much about Yamamoto, just the culture. And what Hernandez said is, in Japan, the hierarchy is sort of created for you. Like, as a younger player, you just kind of have to fall in line, and the older players are, I guess, in charge, or whatever you want to call it. And so the thought was, like, maybe Yamamoto is just comfortable, kind of what you said, falling in line a little bit, because knowing that this is Ohtani's team, knowing that it is not his team, and if there is a failure in the playoffs, that blame is going to go to the front office, as well as Ohtani shouldering the blame. You know what else that Dylan Hernandez said about the Dodgers clubhouse and their locker room is, he said their team is sort of based, if you were to think of, you think of glue and glue guys and togetherness, and that 2010 band of misfits and these crazy personalities just kind of meshed together. He said that the Dodgers clubhouse is way more like 28 independent contractors than it is like a cohesive locker room. And so
hired guns.
So Ohtani comes into this situation where he's the man now. Obviously, he's the man. And then you go, well, what about Mookie Betts? And what about Freddie Freeman? And what about Walker Buehler? And who knows about Kershaw, right? If Kershaw comes back, he probably does have a lot of stature there. And Dylan Hernandez is just like, they all just go their separate ways. They're just independent contractors. They're not like, they're not playing poker at each other's house like all night long and stuff. So it is an interesting dynamic in what you're saying, in you're putting together pieces that are like, you're essentially putting together an all-star team. And I've talked about my buddy before on this show who's a diehard Dodger fan, and he, we go back and forth with Giants Dodgers stuff. And I told him, I said, look, I said this last year, I thought that Dodgers lineup was maybe the greatest 1 through 9 that I'd ever seen on a team ever. And he's like, we couldn't have been better than like those 2000 Yankees and, 62 Yankees. Like, okay, yeah, when there's only 20 teams in the league, I get it. But now, they have put together an insane lineup. Like, who do you pitch to? And so when you do that, the pressure is even bigger to get it done. And if you can't get it done, then it just gets even bigger and bigger and bigger. So, they are, I think there's going to be a giant bullseye on them. Obviously, they're going to win 105 games unless something just completely goes wrong. But I could still see the Braves out scrapping them in the playoffs. I could still see Philly out scrapping them. We saw the Diamondbacks out scrap them in a short series. So they do have their work cut out for them, even though when you put talent for talent, there's probably no better roster in baseball right now.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. But like you said, the cohesiveness, because again, when you think about when you think about that 2000 Yankees team, you kind of think of guys that were scrappers, that were part of the clubhouse. You think of Scott Brocious. You think of uh, oh gosh, who else? Charlie Hayes. Remember Charlie Hayes
Yeah,
played for the
Charlie
Yankees?
Hayes, our
I mean, you
guy.
think about all these guys who were kind of bit players, but they were the heart and soul of the team. Um, and again, we're Giants fans. We're bitter and angry about this whole thing
Yeah,
because we want these guys.
yeah.
But so of course we're going to take your theory, we're going to take your Dodger theory, and we're going to poke holes in it. Is what we're going to do. So we're going to look at that Dodger team and say, cool, you got this awesome lineup, but do you have the cohesiveness? Do you have that that clubhouse chemistry that is always talked about in baseball? I did listen to the same podcast too, and as soon as Dylan Hernandez said that, as soon as he mentioned the fact that you have independent contractors, I thought, man, those are dirty words. I think when you're talking about a clubhouse, you never want to say you never want to say independent. Number one, that word right there, independent. When you're talking about a clubhouse, you're talking about. We went through it with Barry Bonds. Barry
Yeah.
Bonds was independent. He wasn't an independent contractor. He owned that team,
Yeah.
but he was the independent owner of that team, and don't necessarily want that. And as you saw, him and Jeff Kent got into it quite a few times, and especially at one time in the dugout with the cameras going.
Hands around Jeff Kent's neck.
Yeah, exactly. He was going to choke him out, man. So that's really not what you want, and you don't have that type of. At least that was feisty fieriness. You don't really have that. I don't see that with the Dodgers, but again, they could go on and win the World Series the next 3 years in a row, and we're still going to poke holes in them.
Oh yeah,
we're going to find those holes, and we're going to dig a little bit deeper.
Absolutely, yeah. And then my guy Shelvin says Dodgers trying to make sure the little D-backs don't beat them up again. It's like, look, man, those little D-backs
those guys are building.
They're about to be the big D-backs.
they're still building. They're making little moves here and there that are like adding to that team, man. So not only are like everybody says, hey, the Giants fans, how is your team going to catch the Dodgers? And I'm thinking, well, we got to catch the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks.
Oh yeah,
the Diamondbacks are building. I mean, at least we know we can go into Colorado and do some damage. So
yeah,
we've got
yeah, exactly. So we're gonna be following this. The Giants are not going to be able to out star power the Dodgers anytime soon, and we're not. We don't wish harm on any of these guys, though. If Yamamoto had like atomic bunions on his plant foot or something, we're not going to be sad at that necessarily. Or
ate a bad burrito.
Yeah, like what did you said, like a bloody hangnail or something, like like
exactly.
just something that bothers him, doesn't hurt them for long term. We're not going to be mad at that stuff.
No.
Okay, so let's talk about who the Giants could still possibly go after. And I put Blake Snell on the graphic to start this show because I think he's kind of the one that people think is possible. Now, there's been a lot of talk about what he would bring to the table, and I think he's crossing like the 1,000 innings mark or something. And then somebody on Twitter mentioned that Baseball Reference like kind of groups pitchers, in big segments. And once he gets to 1,000 innings, he would have the highest walks per nine of any guy that has like 1,000 innings or something. There's some crazy stats.
Yeah.
So I mean, that is obviously
that's not what we do as Giants, though.
No,
that's the thing. We don't walk people.
So that that's going to be something that the Giants have to think about. So let's actually look at some of these free agents who are left, and I'm going to ask you, yes, no, maybe, and we don't even have to dig too deep. But if I was to say, are you, Brad Evans, in on X player? Yes, no, maybe. And we'll just go through a bunch of them.
And I'll just give you a quick reason as to why I say yes.
We could be quick on that.
Because I can't just say yes or no without giving a reason. I'm a dad. I can't just say yes or no. I got to tell you why I say.
All right, and I'm using the CBS Sports free agent tracker. The top two the top 2 free agents on this list have already been they've already been taken. Obviously, Ohtani and Yamamoto. Cody Bellinger is number 3 on their list. Yes, no, or maybe.
Yes, he would make the Giants immediately better. Again, he's got to repeat what he did last year, and build on that. But again, for the Scott Boras price, I don't know. But let's just take price out of the whole thing, and I'm going to say yes, because we could always use another stud outfielder who can roam Oracle Park and hit bombs. We need bombs, especially left-handed bombs.
He's also only 28, which
exactly
makes it a little bit more attractive, I think.
I'm on board.
Okay, number 4 on this list is Matt Chapman, third baseman. Yes, no, or maybe.
Absolutely yes. And I know there's a lot of people who are like, "Oh, Matt Chapman, he can't hit. He can't, he can hit. He can run into 20 home runs without an issue." And the main thing is he would shore up a corner infield spot. If you can steal 2 runs in a ball game, and drive in 1 run, hey, that's probably going to get you a win. So I'd say yes on Matt Chapman.
So those 2 players combined, based on some of the numbers that are out there, not for as many years as Yamamoto, but for the overall number, we're probably talking, 350 million for those 2 players. All right,
Yeah.
Aaron Nola, he was assigned by the Phillies. So number 6 on this list is none other than Blake Snell.
I was, trust me, right after Yamamoto signing with the Dodgers, I was yes. But I think as time goes on, I'm more leaning towards no. And again, when you do a deep dive into his numbers and you look at those walks, you look at the 2, yeah. Don't let me, let's not forget he did win 2 Cy Youngs. Okay. Both of those Cy Young seasons, he had an ERA plus of 217 and 182. Other than that, he's only hit an ERA plus of 127 at one time. And for the most part, he's been average the rest of the time. Overall, 8 years, his ERA plus is 127. So, I can go without spending all of the money on Blake Snell and piece another couple of starters together.
Okay, so Eduardo Rodriguez signed with the said Diamondbacks.
Huge. I mean, that's a huge signing for them, I think.
And then that would leave Marcus Stroman next, 32 years old, right-handed pitcher from the Cubs. Yes, no, or maybe?
I would go maybe on that one because Jordan Montgomery is still out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would go with Jordan Montgomery before I went with Marcus Stroman. And then if we did go with Jordan Montgomery, and let's say we did go Imanaga, did I say that right?
Mm-hmm.
If we did also get Imanaga, then I would say Stroman on a 1-year reclamation project, 2 years maybe. But I don't feel comfortable going Stroman for like a 4 or 5 year deal, which is what I know he's kind of seeking. So in that case, I'd say maybe, depending on who else we got in front of him.
Okay, so you're a maybe on Stroman, and theoretically,
Yeah.
there's not a good chance. I don't know how good of a chance it is that the Giants get Chapman and Bellinger. I can't imagine they would get both of them. Maybe they do get lucky, or maybe they overpay and get both of them. But you could get one of those 2 players and then a starting pitcher, even if it isn't Snell. And so you would rather go something like Stroman and Chapman over just getting Snell.
Yeah, I would. I'd rather spend the money there because I just don't. I like Snell, but again, there's so many walks, not pitching so many innings. At that point, I'd rather bring up one of our young pitchers from the minors and give them a shot at Again, you're not going to replace a Cy Young Award winner.
Yeah.
But I would rather see somebody else pay that money, especially if it's big money to Blake Snell. You want to give him a 3-year deal, 20 a year for 3 years, 25 a year for 3 years. I'm okay with that, but I just don't want to get tied into a long Blake Snell contract.
The one caveat that the Giants do have is if Blake Snell is your number 2 behind Logan Webb is kind of the opposite in that he goes into the 7th and the 8th inning. And so you would offset your bullpen if you did position them in that way, because, more than likely Logan is going to, save your bullpen a little bit. And then if you do need the bullpen, then you have Blake Snell coming right after him and you got some arms available. So there are ways to piece that together. And I think the Giants believe in their bullpen. I think they believe in the way that they use their arms. So that could also be a benefit. And let's say that the Snell market isn't as hot for him as he had hoped. The Giants could be in there to come down a little bit and say, hey, like, we know how to utilize guys like this. Like, we utilized an opener, every two out of every 5 starts, it seemed like. So we understand how to use our bullpen. Now, you don't want to have to do that a lot. They killed the bullpen by doing it so much last year, but I could visualize Blake Snell fitting just because they are pretty smart in the way that they use their bullpen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What do you think about Josh Hader? Because speaking of the bullpen, shoring up the bullpen, Giants have the money. You'd have another left-hander in the bullpen. But again, you're going to have to pay him closer money, and the Giants have a closer. Would the Giants be adept at having a 2-headed closer?
Where do you fit Taylor Rogers in that? If Hader
still set up, man. I mean, because if you're talking, and again, you could see Taylor Rogers, in the 7th inning. You could see him in the 6th inning. Especially if the Giants have guys like Blake Snell who can't go that deep. And you're getting to the left-handed portion of the lineup, and you don't want to bring Josh Hader in the 6th or 7th innings, so you have Taylor Rogers.
I actually did that in Out of the Park Baseball.
Did you?
I signed Hader, and I had him be the either the lefty closer or the 8th inning man to Doval. And I ended up trading Doval because Hader was just so lights out.
Just so, and that's part of the problem too. Is you have a guy in Doval who doesn't cost you anything to be your closer right now. So to bring in a guy like Hader, it just it wouldn't make sense. It's again, in a video game, it makes absolutely perfect sense because then you're not dealing with feelings. But if you bring in Hader, he's going to expect to be the closer, and you already have a closer. So.
All right, I'll go through a few more here. So Giolito signed with the Red Sox. He was the number 9 on this list. And Jordan Montgomery. So the guy who was one of the stars of the World Series for the Rangers. Left-handed pitcher. He's 31 years old. He's not going to break the bank probably like a Blake Snell is, and maybe in the immediate future for the next couple years might be comparable, maybe even better the way that the Giants play baseball. But Jordan, what do you think about Jordan Montgomery?
I would like Jordan Montgomery in terms of the fact that he does not walk a lot of people. His walks per 9 lifetime 2.5. I mean, that's low. That's a Giants number. His Ks per 9 are 8.4 for his career. Lately, he's been closer to 8, 7.5. I think he's a guy that can also keep the ball in the ballpark. Last year, he gave up, 18 home runs in 188 innings. So that's a fairly lowish number. It's under 20 for almost a full season on the mound. He's an innings eater. I like him. I honestly, again, if we're going to be getting someone like Stroman, and not a Blake Snell. I'd like Jordan Montgomery first, and then possibly Marcus Stroman kind of round things out. But again, more on like a 1 or a 2 year deal. But Jordan Montgomery, 31 years old, he's not going to turn 32 until the end of. As a matter of fact, he just turned 31 like 5 days ago. So he'll be 31 the entire season. 4 year deal or so, kind of lock him into San Francisco for a few years. But he also got a taste of a championship, and anytime you get a taste of a championship, you may kind of want to stick around closer to teams who are near getting more rings. But yeah, I would like Jordan Montgomery on our team.
The one thing that the Giants' advantage for pitching is just that park, and he probably would fare decently at home because he makes him put the ball in play. He doesn't walk guys. He's not even really mid-90s with anything at this point. So, then you get into the defensive aspect, and the Giants would have to shore up that defense behind him if that was the goal. And that's the kind of the same as Stroman, right? It's very similar to Stroman. And Stroman is Stroman is Logan Webb-ish in that sense too. So if they did sign him, he'd be very similar to a similar style pitcher to who they already have as their ace. All right, Kevin Kiermaier signed with the Blue Jays. Sonny Gray signed with the Cardinals. Let's do a couple of more here. Rhys Hoskins, who supposedly is a Giants fan. He's a right-handed bat, first baseman, DH. Kind of fits the mold of the guys that the Giants were kind of bringing in last year, which I think works against him with the current fan base. Do you want to bring in these guys who may not fare well in the bigger ballpark? So I don't know about Rhys, but I like it that he's a Giants fan. I like it that he's that he's on. He knows the history of the team and such.
Yeah, he's again, like you said, we just kind of got rid of Jock Peterson type of guy. We already have a couple other Rhys Hoskin types in JD Davis and Wilmer Flores. Rhys Hoskins can hit. I mean, he's a 30 home run guy. But again, you've got Lamont Wade Jr. at first base. Do you unseat him for Rhys Hoskins? If you have a spot as a DH, I think he'd be fantastic. Career 240 hitter, but again, got that just nasty power. He can walk too. That's the other thing about him. He did have 72 walks last season. But again, when you're in a lineup like that too, it is kind of you run into a lot of situations where your pitchers are trying to work around certain guys to get to other guys, but Rhys Hoskins, right-handed power. I mean, the Giants would have to make some trades, I think, in order to free up a spot for a Rhys Hoskins. Again, sign Chapman, trade JD Davis, sign Hoskins. Then you've got a right-handed DH. A lot of things would have to happen. And I think a lot of teams are in the situation the Giants are in right now. And that's why this thing is just not picking up. What are we, like 7 weeks away, 6 weeks away from spring training here? And we still have some of the biggest names on the board. And everybody thought as soon as Shohei signs, here it goes, we're going to start going. Nope. We got to wait for Yamamoto. As soon as Yamamoto signs, it's going to start going. Things are just kind of stagnant right now. But there's also a lot of money to be had, because when you're talking about Boris trying to work that Bellinger contract, and Boris is also Chapman's agent, right?
I think so.
So you've got, of course, trying to maximize the money. So things are just kind of moving really, really slow right now. But I think if the Giants can make some trades and free up some space, then yeah, a guy like Hoskins, I would like him on our team.
All right, last one for now. This would be maybe a little bit of like getting back at the Dodgers a little bit. Clayton Kershaw at 35 years old, made 24 starts last year, 131 innings, was his baseball card. Back at the baseball card numbers are good. If you dig in a little bit more, not as great. Like he gave up the highest hard hit percentage of his career last year, and it was by a decent amount. But again, doesn't walk a lot of guys. Strikes out a decent amount. The fastball's down to low 90s at this point. But it would be, the Giants at one point, they brought Oral Hershiser in for like a
Yeah, I
year
was
or
gonna
two.
say. I saw him pitch his debut. I don't know if it was his debut with the Giants, but it was his candlestick debut with the Giants, opening day. And man, I don't even remember what year that was now.
It
But
had to be like maybe mid 90s, like 95 or something.
it's possible. Yeah, right around there. I'd have to take a look. But yeah, you know what? Again, I think if the Giants were more, I think if the Giants had more young starters in their rotation. I mean, you got Kyle Harrison, Logan Webb is kind of getting to be veteran status. You've got Disco, who's been around a while. You got Cobb, who's been around a while. Because I was going to say yes on Kershaw if we needed that veteran presence to show these guys how to prepare for a long season in the major leagues.
And so that's what I was thinking was,
yeah,
do you bring him in for a year and tell Kyle Harrison, just follow this dude around everywhere he goes? Just soak up.
But then is that a slap in the face to Logan Webb, though?
I don't think so, because if Kyle Harrison is going to be who he, if he's going to develop, like that is a great mentor, right? The way that Kershaw pitches, or the way that Kershaw used to pitch with the power stuff, and now has had to adjust as the fastball has gone. Like that'd be a great mentor, and you could still get that from Logan. Look, Kershaw could probably, not teach, but he could probably help Logan out with a couple things here and there, right? Because he,
absolutely,
he has had a Hall of Fame career. So in that sense, I think it'd be awesome. But in the other sense of, maybe the area that we live in versus, what Kershaw's had to live in California, just politically, it would seem to be maybe not the best fit based on what we saw last year with the issue with that one night that they were planning in Dodger Stadium. So, without thinking of politics and the areas and stuff, I kind of like the fit as like a fifth guy and somebody who, you don't depend on to go out there every fifth day. You kind of depend on him to be, he's throwing 25 starts a year, and then you're filling in with Keaton Wynn and guys like that. And
See now, if Wynn was in the starting rotation, and Harrison and Logan Webb, and then you had some of the other younger guys too, then I would say, yeah, okay, you need him in there. Him and Bob Melvin, Matt Williams, all of these old vets that can kind of show these guys the ropes. But yeah, I don't know. That would be a tough one, because especially with Kershaw and Harrison being lefties, I mean, he could really, really learn a lot from him. But I think obviously Kershaw's leaning towards Texas is the last thing I heard.
He should lean towards the Dodgers, man. Like just finish it out and try and get that last World Series. But to go back to Texas.
Well, the Dodgers signed Yamamoto. They basically told Kershaw, we don't need you anymore, man.
Well, but that would be better for him, right? If you think about it.
Yeah.
If they are going to go to
give a little push,
6-man rotation, that probably fits better for Kershaw than anything else, because it's just the wear and tear on the arm.
Yeah, you get him 20 starts. There you go.
All right. So before we get to our drink of the show, Shelvin being in our chat earlier reminded me, because he's a big 49ers fan, and our teams play each other this weekend to end the regular season.
It's going to be a weird game, though.
Yeah, the Niners don't need to win. They've clinched the first seed in the NFC. And what is the status with what you guys need to do?
So the Rams have locked up a playoff spot. They're in the playoffs. They're in the 6th seed at the moment. I think if Green Bay wins this weekend, then Green Bay gets that final spot. Or if Green Bay and Seattle win, I think Seattle. So the Rams have the tiebreaker over Seattle. They do not have the tiebreaker over Green Bay. So the Rams are either going to finish 6th or 7th. And they've already elevated 4 players from the practice squad. So that should tell you right there kind of their plan for the weekend. Their plan they elevated a quarterback from the practice squad. So that more than likely means Carson Wentz is probably going to play the majority of the game.
Interesting.
And Stafford's going to kind of rest a little bit. So I mean, the Rams are kind of beat up right now too, and they're kind of sneaking into the playoffs, but they've been playing good football, and they've been playing the thing is they've been playing physical football, very physical, pounding, running football. So I think getting them that like kind of a week of rest is going to help them quite a bit. But it's a big difference. If you have that 7 seed, we go to Dallas, where Dallas is dominant at home. And they beat us by 23 earlier in the season. But again, that's the game that Stafford got hurt like in the first quarter, and the game just went downhill. Versus, which is what all the Rams fans want.
Detroit.
The 6th seed going to Detroit, McVay versus Goff. And that would be
Stafford goes to the
Stafford
franchise
that
he played for the beginning of his career. That would be quite interesting.
Yeah, so that would be a lot of fun. But
I like the Dallas matchup too, because I think you guys would fare well in that matchup.
Dallas
is very talented. They're also a little front runnery in the way that they play. So I would be pretty fired up if you guys actually went into Dallas and beat Dallas.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm interested in the Detroit play as well. I think you guys have a good, Dallas is going to be favored by 7 points or so, no matter what. But I still think it'd be a very entertaining game. Yeah. So our teams are going to play it. It's probably not going to mean anything. It'll probably look like a preseason game. So
now that's what's going on with the Niners too? Because I know
I can't
McCaffrey's
imagine
not going to play.
I can't imagine they're going to. I mean, they may want to suit up folks just for preparation and to prepare like you're going to play, and you go out there and play a series and then you're done. But I can't imagine they're going to really put too many people in harm's way. Right. And but again, like, you have these small rosters in the NFL, and you could really hurt your depth by playing some of these guys like the full game, in a kind of a meaningless game.
Well, if Carson Wentz goes out there and he gets hurt, then all of a sudden Stafford really doesn't have that backup anymore. So yeah, like you said, the depth. I mean, so there's a lot of things. I just want to see, fun competitive game this weekend. I probably won't be like, I don't think I sat down in the game against the Giants this weekend, because that was for it. I mean, that was to get into the playoffs. We needed that game. And then right afterwards, the Steelers took it to the Seahawks, and that was fantastic. So that allowed us to kind of hop in there.
All right, before I ask you the question to kick off 2024, let's talk about our drink of choice tonight. I'll go first because I don't know if anyone can see my sweatshirt here, but I am wearing a Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Oh, nice.
Rock branded Under Armour hoodie. And the reason why I'm doing that is because yesterday on Monday Night Raw, they wheeled out old 51-year-old Dwayne.
That guy's not 51, man. He looks like he's 20.
And it looks like he's going to have a match at WrestleMania this year. So at 51, as jacked as ever, the most jacked 51-year-old guy you'll ever see. Yeah. And so
I'm trying to catch up to him, man.
I have my Rock sweatshirt, and I also have my Terramana to kick off the new year. So this year, I remember last year I was talking about on this show how it was going to be the year of the old fashioned. Like I was just going to have if I went to a restaurant and they had a bar, I was just going to have an old fashioned. And so I went through all of 2023. It was old fashioned, old fashioned, old fashioned. I was like, what am I going to do for 2024? And it's Manhattan. I think I'm going Manhattan for 2024. So both bourbon drinks. So, they're both very tasty as well. So I'm going Manhattan. Had one at Crystal and I went to lunch the other day. I had one, and then we went to dinner with the family on New Year's Eve, and I had one. So already got 2 in, but that's what I'm gonna do for 2024 is the Manhattan.
I do like the Manhattans. I have the stuff to make it here. The sweet vermouth is. I gotta see if I can do a variation of a Manhattan, because I would have 2 Manhattans in a night, no problem. But the problem is the sweet vermouth. The sugar in that gets me. Like just after one drink, it's like boom, there it is. Tonight I'm ringing in the new year with a little Wild Turkey 101.
There you go.
50.5% bourbon, poured a 2-ouncer. I did get a Rams for Christmas. I got a Rams bourbon tumbler, but I didn't. I didn't know if it was going to be appropriate. And now next week I'll bust it out, even though I don't know how the heck this game. Now, let's say if both teams were at full force and both teams were fighting for something, I wouldn't feel good about this weekend. I'll tell you. Well,
I will say that when the 49ers went into LA in week 2, that was more tough of a game than I think that the Niners fans realized was going to be. So, very early on when everyone was saying the Rams are terrible, and I was like, I don't know. They played the Niners pretty well, and the Niners supposed to be good. So, yeah, I mean, I think that it's the Shanahan versus McVay thing where
that's the problem.
But McVay did beat Shanahan in the one matchup that counted. So that's kind of what the Niners are hanging their hats on. It's like, yeah, we can beat the Rams in regular season, but that NFC Championship game was the one that McVay did win out on. So
and that's why I say that, because this is a regular season game. Now in the playoffs, if we meet in the playoffs, I will have more confidence, because playoff McVay is a different McVay. The team, I don't know what it is he does to get that team ready every year in the playoffs, but it is fun to watch them in the playoffs because they do some different things. All of a sudden you go, oh, this is our offense now this week. And then going forward, that's your offense. Belichick took it to him in the Super Bowl the first time McVay got there. But then after that, it just kind of seemed like McVay turned up the dial whenever they got to the playoffs. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, no. And I like seeing the Rams in there. I like seeing the NFC West represented because, sometimes especially if you have a good team and the division sucks, you're like, okay, are we really good? We just won all these games against these bad teams in our division.
Yeah.
But, the Seahawks were average. And I think the Rams, record-wise, the Rams are a little bit better than average. But I still think that, when I look back at some of these games, like, that was one of the tougher games that the Niners had that they didn't lose, because they've lost some games to tough teams. Like that Baltimore team is ridiculous. And that's,
and that's a team that the Rams went into Baltimore and took them into overtime. So, I mean, that's, it's the NFL, man, any given Sunday.
All right. Last question before we end this show. This is more of a fill in the blank for the Giants. 2024 will be the year of the blank.
That is a tough one because we have a new identity with Bob Melvin. I'm also going to throw in new identity with Matt Williams because he brings a lot to the table. 2024, and we're talking specifically just the Giants, not baseball in general.
Right, just the Giants.
I want to say 2024 will be the year of the running Giants, but we still don't have anybody other than Jung-Hoo Lee and Tyro Estrada who can tear up the base pass. So I'm going to say 2024 will be the year of dominant pitching. And because we kind of have to go that way at this point. You know what I mean? Having Yamamoto would have been fantastic, but I still think the Giants can piece together with what they have, possibly a Jordan Montgomery. Again, Blake Snell, I don't necessarily want him, but I think he can help in a limited capacity. I just don't want to see a lot of him.
Stroman, I know you talked about him already, but being a sinker baller, he will fare better in Oracle than
true
some of those guys, just because.
So Jordan Montgomery and Marcus Stroman,
bring them together,
right?
Well, so I'm leaning towards what you were basically saying. I was going to say one of two. I was going to say 2024 is going to be the year of the complete game, because I think Logan Webb. I think he wants to finish. Like, he thinks he could finish pretty much every game, and it's really just about limiting some of those pitches in certain innings to kind of cut down
the first inning. Yeah. Really, I mean, when you watch them, it's the first inning, and I'm going to put the over/under on complete games when we do our predictions. Yeah.
So it was going to be either the year of the complete game, or I was going to say the year of the starting staff going deeper into games, because last year was the year of the opener, which sucked. Like, we didn't like it.
Nobody wants that.
It was boring. It was not fun to see, some guy come in and pitch for an inning. You wanted to see a guy take the ball and go like, I'm giving you 6 and let's go. That's how baseball sort of is meant to be played. So, the year of the starting staff going into innings, or the year of the complete game, whatever you shall choose, that's what I'm going with. So we're kind of on the same page. All right. So next week, hopefully we'll get some more news about the Giants don't get some of these guys. I just want to see some action happen. Baseball. Come on. I mean, they really have to do something to make these agents and these teams force them to work together and get this stuff done. Like, baseball should be a year-round sport. Like, why is it?
Yeah, I mean, can't there be a simple rule like 60 days after you declare yourself a free agent, you have to sign with a team?
Something, yeah.
I don't know.
You got to do something. But boy, yeah. So next week, I think we should be able to be back on our Monday schedule next week. I don't see any issues with that. We did Tuesday because of the holiday. Last week we didn't have a show because of the holiday, so we'll be back in our normal schedule. And like you said, like, it's kind of crazy. It's like spring training is not that far away.
I mean, we're right there. We're on the cusp. We are in 2024. The new baseball season year has begun. And there are you read off the list, the top free agents. There are 70% of them still sitting there waiting to sign with somebody. It's insane.
All right. Thank you all for hanging out with us. For Brad, I am Double G. We will see you next week. Peace out.
Peace.